They were going to his house at the
Hi, guys. Good morning. Good morning. Oh my God, there's already 16 people. Look in the room. That's so amazing. Good morning. Good morning. So can y'all tell me how you are? This is Vickie Adamson, County Commissioner. She's really far back from me because we're social distancing. So I'm up close to the computer so that I can see things. And she's not a small woman. She's not a midget. She's just really far back. So it's called an over-the-shoulder interview is what we're doing. Oh, here's Mitzi Safran. She is not a student, but she is involved in academics at this district awful. Hi, Hennessy. Is that tired or is that happy? I hope it's tired. I really hope Kate Sherman will get on and tell us, hi. Hi, Ryan. I haven't seen you on here before. Oh, Mackenzie said hi to you specifically. Hi, Jessica. I want to know how Kate Sherman is. Does anybody know how Kate Sherman is? She was sick. And I got distracted. Oh my God, Marina, you're back. Marina was sick. Oh, she's feeling better today. Oh, good. Hi, Matthew Gearing. He's a student from previous semesters. So it has been a while. Welcome. Y'all give me an emoji to let me know how you are, or a word. I'm assuming if you're on here that you're, well, we know you're alive, right? We hope you're well, but any indication of that with an emoji letting me know how you are would be good. Okay, so some quick things before we get to the programming. We always know I get very distracted with who's talking to me here, and I forget that we need to move on. But it's 10:33. Yes, we have the usual caveats before we get started. I don't mean to cover up your face, but here we go. All right, so what this is not, this is not a lecture for class. This is not an assignment, or there'll be no assignments or grades. This is not official WCPSS policy or news. This is not a vanity project, so I don't really care how many people watch it as long as the people who watch it find it useful. And this is not a particularly well-prepared, packaged, or high production. No pressure, Vickie. No pressure. Okay. What this is from the heart. We are here hoping to meet your needs in some way and also share our gifts that we have to give today. This is also a demonstration of how social studies, as the disciplines that we study under that subject, how they're super useful and practical and can be applied in real life. And it's also how you can be 3 days ahead of everyone else in terms of understanding what's going on or how you can adapt. Okay. And remember, these are the disciplines that we are looking at: psychology, sociology, history, economics, geography, and government and civics. Okay, related to government and civics. This is a pretty good production. See,
I like it.
She wasn't there.
I'm impressed that you have like cue cards and everything.
Well, that's it. That's the whole shebang. The kids can tell you, like, this is as impressive as it gets. But this is pretty impressive because we have a county commissioner in the house. Okay, so we know we usually do guest speaker day, and we know that is probably not going to happen the way it usually happens, so we're adapting. And Vickie, of course, always comes to guest speaker day, and she's always a really important part of it for as long as she has been in office. And so she immediately thought, hey, why don't I just come be with your students in this new way, which is incredible. But it's not surprising. Okay, so let me tell you why it's not surprising. This is my introduction of Mrs. Adamson, and then we'll get to the meat of it. So you're just gonna have to sit there. You're gonna have to sit there and suffer with me introducing you as if you can cover your face if you want, because I'm about to embarrass you.
Okay.
All right, so Miss Adamson is the coolest. She, I don't remember all the details. This is just what I hold in my head, and we know I'm a generalist. Okay, but she's the coolest. She's super well educated at impressive institutions. Would you like to remind us which ones?
I forget.
She has yes.
My whole brain is the coronavirus right now.
Yeah, the past does not exist in her brain right now. Just the present and the future exists. Okay. She is a specialist in finance, and she has worked in corporate life related to. I mean, how lucky are we that we have someone in finance helping us out at this moment? She's specialized in finance. She has also been of critical importance to the public schools in Wake County. She has given countless hours volunteering, helping in every capacity with her. How many sons do you have?
One, just
One son. He's so impressive. He feels like two, but and I'm sure he's kept you busy as all children do. But this is how you know that Vickie Adamson did her part for the public schools. At a school in Wake County, a teacher's lounge is named after her.
That's right. It's dedicated. Some people get presidents get libraries. I get teacher's lounge.
I have been teaching for 27 years, and I have never in my life heard of a space in a school being named after a parent.
Because I got all the furniture donated for the space.
Yeah, and a million other reasons too. So anyway, that's all I need to say about that. If you have your name permanently installed on something in a public school, you've done your part. I don't have my name installed permanently on the only other person I know who has their name permanently installed in a public school is Richard Murphy, the founding principal of Leesville Road High School.
Okay.
So
there we go.
I mean, that's all I need to know. Okay, so then Vickie decided to run for public office. I mean, she did a lot of other things between the things we talked about, but and to be honest, I was surprised because you defeated an incumbent in the primary. And as a political science teacher, that just does not happen very often. We all know about incumbency advantage and how it does tend to lead to primary challengers not being successful. She was successful. And now she won the general election. And I have been so impressed, as have so many other people, about how you have used your role to support the public schools, but also just bring an authenticity to the space that I have not seen before. An example is a former student of mine, Chad Berwick. He texted me just this morning, not even knowing you were coming. And he said this. He said, this is so funny. My life has some strange synchronicities to it. But he says, I just wanted to let her know that she seems great. I've just been really impressed. And he's impressed with your communication. He says, can I just say how impressed I am with Commissioner Adamson? Her updates are amazing.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Amazing.
Yeah, in this time, that's what I think our citizens are looking for. Is they just want to know what's going on. Because in the last 2 weeks, our worlds have changed. It's a different world. At some point, we're going to have a new normal. But until then, there's a lot of desert in the middle to get through. So, and we need accurate information going out. There's so much misinformation going out. And the experts with this virus, the experts don't know everything yet. They're learning. There's a tremendous amount of research going on. And as we get new accurate information, that needs to go out. And one of the first things I wanted to say now is first is, hi, thank you guys for tuning in today. There's so much misinformation that if somebody is not symptomatic, you can catch it. That is true to a point because, our bodies, they call it the viral load. And before we're sick, we have the virus in our body for potentially up to 2 weeks beforehand. But it's a very low level. When the virus gets to be a higher level in our bodies is when we get the symptoms. You get the fever, you start coughing, you feel bad, you might feel like you're having trouble breathing. At that point, that means you've got a really high viral load that your body's reacting to it. And when you have a low viral load, your body doesn't react to that. It doesn't see it as a foreign invader yet. So when your viral load is low and you're asymptomatic, there's a possibility that you can transmit it to somebody else. It's very unlikely because you don't have as much high viral load. And once your viral load gets high and you're coughing, that's when you're emitting the virus into the atmosphere. And one of our public health officials told me what this virus wants is to be transmitted to live and to infect more people. So that's why you get a high viral load. You start coughing and it gets transmitted. So if you've come into contact with somebody who is asymptomatic, there is a slight chance you could catch it, but it's In that sense, it's like the regular flu. If you come in contact with somebody with the regular flu prior to them being symptomatic, you can catch it, but it's really unlikely because their viral load is low. But now when your viral load gets high, what's that virus wanting to do? It's wanting to reproduce itself and go on to another host body. So that's why when you're symptomatic, you don't feel good, you need to isolate yourself from others so you don't allow that to happen and it stops with you. And one more thing that's, I think there's an urban myth, and then I'll go on to talk about how county government has changed in the last 10 days. Um,
We're getting the cutting edge news here.
Because I don't even, this afternoon it could be completely different. I've had a lot of young, and that's one of the reasons I offered to come here is I wanted to talk to some young people. When you look at the statistics, older folks, especially ones who have other health conditions, are the ones who we're seeing the most affected by this. And a lot of young people feel like they get it, they'll be sick for 2 or 3 days and they'll be fine. And chances are that's exactly what's going to happen. But when your viral load gets high, it wants to spread it. So you might spread it to somebody who takes it to a nursing home, which we know would wipe out 15 to 20% of the population in that nursing home. You might take it to you or somebody else might give it to somebody who's immune suppressed, even though they're a young person, and where a healthy young person might be sick 3 or 4 days, feel terrible, they're fine. It'll be a huge medical emergency for them. So when you think about, I've had a lot of young people say to me, well, I'm not worried. I'm not changing anything. If I catch it, I'll be sick 2 or 3 days and it'll be fine. But it's who you pass it along to. So this is one of those times when I keep thinking about John F. Kennedy when he said, it's not what your country can do for you, it's what you can do for your country. And right now, what you can do for your country is stay away from others as much as possible and don't let yourself get infected so you're not passing it on, so we can let this thing die out and we can start getting back to a normal life. Well, what I have seen happen with county government in the last 2 weeks, and governments are notorious for being slow movers. And part of that is by design, because when we go to create a new policy or a new program or change an existing mix of what we offer, we want the opportunity for a whole lot of input. We want to hear everybody's voices. We want to look at all the contingencies. We want to give every citizen plenty of opportunity to have input and just knowledge of what's going on. Well, we haven't had that luxury in the last 10 days. And I have been amazed at what we have put in place. But I know there was a lot of just drama around when the schools were going to close. But the hope had been to pull them down Thursday, which would be tomorrow. And last week, the school board made the absentee policy basically open. So if a parent felt uncomfortable sending their child, they didn't have to. And there would be no consequence to the student. So that would give really vulnerable families 3 days to brace. And families whose parent is a frontline worker that we need on board now, healthcare worker, first responder, so they could get childcare lined up, and we as a county could get ready to provide nutrition to the students who are on the free and reduced lunch program. And we do that in the summer, but we have months and months to plan for that. Mm-hmm. And it's not just like handing a sandwich to your neighbor. I mean, it's tens of thousands of people. And that's a huge effort to pull that together just out of nothing. So when it became apparent over the weekend that schools just couldn't open on Monday. So Saturday morning, county staff, along with Wake County Public School staff, the cooperative extension, and a lot of really strong partners, nonprofits, said, okay, how soon can we start feeding kids? Well, yesterday, feeding stations opened up all over the county. And it wasn't the typical model that we normally follow, which is kids come in, you have to pre-sign up, they have to know, you get federal money, you have to know who they are, and they typically get free and reduced lunches. And you have to count them when they come in. You can't give food to adults, it's only the kids. You have to see the child. And of course, we knew none of that would work because you can't be around people. We needed to be able to somehow hand it to people without face-to-face contact. And they're also dealing with an environment where food is scarce right now, not because we don't have enough in the food supply, but because people's nature is to go out and try to hoard some items. And I'm not throwing stones at anybody for that. On the way home, I'm gonna go buy a whole lot of hand soap if I can find it. So I am doing this myself and have really fought the urge to go try to buy lots of toilet paper and stuff myself. But I'm gonna have
That's a later lesson on scarcity. Scarcity and the economy are key ideas. So thank you for reminding me. We need to do one of these.
But this commissioner is gonna own a whole lot of hand soap if I can find it just to make myself feel better. So we knew we had to prepare the food for some type of to-go situation. So that means we've got to get 10,000s of bags in, we've got to get 10,000s of containers in, and we've had a lot of parents want to volunteer and we need them, but they can't actually prepare the food because we have to have people who are trained, who know how to handle it, who know how to, especially now, we had to get in containers that were sanitized, that we knew were clean, and we have to keep them that way.
At the same time that all these restaurants are trying to move to takeout operations.
Exactly. And grocery stores are running out of food.
Right.
And they're in the market trying to get food into their stores to meet their demands. So it's a miracle of government. So what we had to do was we had to throw out all the rules and start over. And since we didn't know where the funding sources were, one of the most important things we as county commissioners could do was show up Monday to a meeting and just allocate money to it to get it rolling. Right. Now we do have some foundations who want to step in with some really big money to help, but we had to know that the supplies we needed Monday were paid for. So we could move into Tuesday and get this started. And since it looks like this is probably going to be longer than 2 weeks, plan for the long term. And happily
plan for the long term. At the same time, you're trying to just pull off the next day.
Yes. And fortunately, yesterday, I understand there was a few hiccups. And the other situation we face is county government, which, and I'm having staff who's worked with the county 30 plus years who are like, this is just weird. Okay, we've never dealt with this before. One of the things that the media has not really picked up on is the hospitality industry in Wake County is $1 billion industry. There's 67,000 people in Wake County that work in the hospitality industry, and they're shut down. The convention center's closed, the PNC arena's closed, all the arts venues are closed, movie theaters are closed. And I got a report.
67,000. Okay, in my mind, this is what Skilly's always thinking. There's 100,000 teachers in the whole state of North Carolina, and you're saying there's 67,000 workers dependent upon the restaurant and hospitality industry in just this one county of 100.
Yes, and that's about 8% of our workforce. 8% of our workforce.
So closing these restaurants could not be done lightly.
No, and one example is the convention center. It's closed for at least 60 days, and once it reopens, there's not business. It's not like a restaurant when you reopen it.
Right.
There's people that are going to come eat just because there's kind of pent-up demand. You haven't been able to do it a while. You can't wait to go out and eat.
Right.
You're feeling really good. You're going to tip your wait staff extra. The
convention center, people make these plans a year out.
Oh, longer than a year out.
And they're canceling all these plans. They're just not making these.
Well, fortunately, we have stepped in and we're getting them to reschedule. But in the short term, there was 2 huge conventions that were supposed to be in Raleigh in April. And they have postponed. They have not completely canceled yet. But at the convention center alone, there's hundreds of people who work there. There's cleaners, they do their own in-house food service. There's, the banquet staff that serve you, to the people who clean the dishes, to all the people who run around and set tables up. And they're the people who greet you when you come in, to parking attendants. And we got a report yesterday from some of our large hotels that have hundreds of rooms that are not averaging 20 rooms filled a night. So there goes their food service is closed. There goes maids. And these
It's the ripple effect.
It's just the ripple effect.
The smallest ripple suddenly builds, and turns into a wave.
So we think that our unemployment rate in Wake County normally runs about 3.9%, which is full unemployment.
Wow, that's low.
We think it probably just popped to over 10. And we don't have statistics yet to count it. But these are people, especially wait staff, bartenders, they live on tips. So they go home every night with this handful of money because they pay them almost nothing in their regular check. And that's what they live on the next day. So we knew when we set up feeding, we had to include adults because
this is looping back to when students. Now you're realizing that you have to have different protocols because now you're not only going to have to give food to kids, you're going to have to give food to adults.
Right. And we don't have time for paperwork. Right. One, that just slows the whole process down. Right. And it's face-to-face contact. And we would have to have more staff to take that paperwork. Right. And what we want is all hands on deck to see, because the most immediate need people have is nutrition.
This is what you're trying to do is the opposite of what the Trump administration did when they decided that everyone coming back from Europe had to go through some health checks. And in doing that requirement without building the infrastructure to support it, we had all these people coming back into the airports and waiting for hours together to get the government service that they were required to do. And that's the opposite of what we're supposed to be doing, is standing in big rooms of people. So if you had created all this friction about how long it would take you to get your food, which you are going to need if we have a 10% unemployment rate and we already have kids on free and reduced lunch. So y'all are having as government to create a whole new set of protocols to just make sure you don't create more problems in your efforts to solve problems.
Right. And we have a limited number of resources, and you have to think, where do you want them deployed? Right. So it was a miracle that there was people fed yesterday.
It really is a miracle. And let me also say this. I've been trying to tell the students, if you understand about social institutions, I've been trying to help them understand that their families and their churches are the fastest to adapt.
Absolutely.
I told them government would be slower to adapt, but that the local level will adapt first, and then the state, and then the feds in some way. So what you're hearing is that. Meanwhile, I, as someone who's known as kind of a person who cares about the community, I have all these well-meaning parents who are all over me about what are we doing? And luckily, I knew enough about government to be able to say to them, we need to stop. And instead of coming up with 1,000 different plans and filling our trunks up with mac and cheese and peaches cups that we ultimately are not going to know how to safely deploy, we need to give, because I know Commissioner Adamson and we are in communication with each other, I knew she was on it. And I knew that the people in government that we elected at the local level, we know them. They are our friends. They are our neighbors. Okay. And we know that we can have faith in them. But you just got to give them time, because as she's telling you here, it's an incredible amount of complexity and detail that has to be worked out. So I'm hoping at the end of this, she can tell us, now that the plane has been built as we're flying it in the air, you can tell us how we can best contribute to that effort. And it sounds like money is going to be important.
Money's going to be important. And the piece that we haven't quite got in place yet is delivery. Because right now, you have to come to where the food is. Whether it's a mobile unit that's going around that will set up shop in a church parking lot, or a school or community center that's delivering these meals is still a drive up. So the second piece, and by the way, I didn't do anything with it. What I have found in the last 2 weeks, the best thing I could do as a commissioner, and my fellow commissioners have pretty much been doing the same thing, is get out of the way and make sure the resources are there for staff and just let them do it. So
Because here's a government lesson. I'm sorry I keep interrupting.
Sure, go for it.
There's teachable lessons in here. They're career employees of the county.
Yes.
They're bureaucrats.
Yes.
Okay. And they have been committed their whole life to the department that they work in, probably. And they know better than anyone else how this could happen quickly in a very detailed way. But it's very important what Ms. Adamson just said, which is let the experts do their job, right? As an elected official, it might be very tempting for her to come in and try to micromanage this because she's so stressed out because she knows ultimately that whatever happens is going to be a reflection on her.
Right.
Because she's the elected official. But the smartest thing you could do is trust the experts. And for bureaucrats like myself or my husband's police officer, we love that because we know that we think that we as career employees within the bureaucracy really are best suited